This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of sports. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We're back here on a Friday, leading you into the weekend. It is one more day in the work week, and then most of you will have the 3-day weekend. On Monday is President's Day, although we will still be recording in the studio, so we're not taking any days off here. Well, during the week, that is.
Right.
But so we're going to jump right into the action here. We got a lot of good, compelling storylines and discussions to talk about today. We're going to lead off here in the NFL. So before we get to the main part of this segment here, Mario Williams, former number one pick of the Texans, and now the Miami Dolphins, really not any longer, though. He only played 1 year in Miami after he got a monster deal last year in the offseason. He only had 1.5 sacks. He's getting up there in age. He's in his 30s, and he was cut by Miami yesterday. They also cut a couple other people, one of them being Earl Mitchell. And then they're looking to trade left tackle Brandon Albert, who they brought over from Kansas City a couple of years back. And then they'll probably move Laramie Tunsil, who was at guard, to tackle next year. But so Mario Williams, only 1.5 sacks last year. I really don't see him getting a real shot anywhere else to be a consistent starter. I see maybe a rotational guy. Some teams maybe reported would be interested, would be maybe Denver or Kansas City, but I think Mario Williams' career is kind of done.
Yeah, he's probably done at this point. I remember when he left Buffalo and everything that happened with that, people were talking about his kind of like work ethic, and they were going back and forth between him and Rex Ryan and trying to figure out who necessarily was right, because, you can say, oh, I didn't work that hard. Oh, well, you didn't have a good system. You can go back and forth about that for a little bit. But then he goes to Miami and only has 1.5 sacks, and you're playing next to, Cameron Wake and Dominican Sue, people that have to be double teamed and have to actually, be focused on, and you still can only get 1.5 sacks, and it was kind of a thing the whole year with him. And you talk about now, what is he going to do in the sense of, is he going to be able to be somebody that can go on a team and just get a couple of sacks, kind of a la like Dwight Freeney status? But Dwight Freeney, basically for the last few years, has been the guy that's been the kind of, we're not going to play you all the time. We're just going to do it on plays that we know are going to be passing downs. I'm going to let you go free. But Freeney, pretty much throughout his whole time in Indianapolis, he was a model citizen, always, was never talked about in any way that wasn't glowing. So all of that happened. He got some more jobs, going over to San Diego or Arizona. But now with someone like Mario Williams, I would assume maybe he gets one more shot because he was number one overall pick. So maybe they just think oh, well, maybe I can help and I can do this. Maybe he goes to the Rams or something like that. And, Wade Phillips thinks he can get a couple of sacks out of him. But outside of that, if he has another bad year, he's probably just done as a whole in the NFL.
Yeah, it could be really just a rotational guy. That's really best case scenario for Williams in my eyes. Mm-hmm. But maybe someone takes a chance on him. Maybe they have some injuries in training camp.
Right.
But anyways, one guy who quite honestly might have his career ended now is where we're going to transition to. So Darrelle Revis, he was already kind of in, I guess you can say, shaky situations about being on the Jets roster for next year. He's owed $15 million, $2 million, I guess you can say roster bonus in middle of March, like March 9th, March 11th, somewhere around there. But now, with what happened on Sunday and what is coming out today, it makes his, I guess you can say, future in New York even more cloudy.
Yeah.
Because the Jets cornerback is being charged with 4 felonies and a misdemeanor by the Pittsburgh police for something that happened, I guess you can say, in the wee hours of Sunday morning, about 2:30 in the morning. So, basically you have a classic he said this and then he said this. So what happened is Darrelle Revis owns some sort of property in Pittsburgh. He went to college there, so I'm sure he goes back to the area all the time.
Right.
And he wanted to visit it during a time where there wouldn't be a ton of people out. Obviously, 2:30 in the morning is, I guess you can say, a good time for that, but not so much in this case. Because basically what happened is someone came up to him, maybe two guys, and asked, like, oh, are you Darrelle Revis? And he's like, yes, I'm Darrelle Revis. And then all of a sudden, a guy whips out a phone, starts recording it. Revis isn't sure if it's like some sort of a weapon because he wasn't really looking directly at the guy. And then the next thing you know is that there's a couple of guys unconscious. Darrelle Revis and his lawyer said that he was attacked by 5 guys, and then one of his friends came in there to help him. He had some sort of physical impairments to him. He had to get some sort of medical treatment. But basically, it's like a typical he said this. So what happened now is that Revis is being charged with 4 felonies, one of them of aggravated assault, robbery, conspiracy, and a misdemeanor of terroristic threats. So now you have the incidents where Darrelle Revis may or may not even play next year because he could face some jail time here.
Right.
I mean, it's not a good situation, and we really just kind of have to let the legal system take full respect here and kind of work everything out, because they're going to have to work out a lot of things. They had some witnesses say that 2 men were unconscious for about 10 minutes, according to the Pittsburgh police. So there's a lot that really goes into here, and it's still kind of preliminary. But for a guy who may or may not even be on the roster anyways, for this to happen now, I'm going to say he's not on the Jets for sure. But I honestly think maybe even his career is over. Because Darrelle Revis has never been a guy who's had any issues with the law. He's always been a good law-abiding citizen, never been in trouble, and he's always been really smart with getting deals, signed a monster deal, 5 years, $70 million last year with the Jets, and then he had really his worst season ever, and looked like he was kind of really on the decline, and the only chance he had next season was to maybe even move to like a safety position, because man-to-man, he was just getting lit up and beat by everyone.
Right. Yeah, no, last year was the first year that we kind of all saw as a collective. It's like, oh, okay, so that Revis Island thing, that doesn't really exist anymore. Everything that he's being charged with, I mean, like you said, who knows? Like, that'll be, weighed out by the justice system. They'll either, convict him, or they'll, plea deal or drop charges. Whatever happens, like, that'll end up happening over the next couple of months. But as far as the Jets go, he said how much of his contract that he's owed next year. Like, I don't think they're going to do that, this not even withstanding. Like, I think just had, these few days passed, nothing happened, they would have cut him regardless because of how much money they owe him and how unproductive, or at least not as productive for the money that he's owed. They probably would have cut him anyway. So now you have that situation. I do think he'll get a job, because assuming he doesn't go to actual jail/prison, assuming that doesn't happen, and he just like has to do a fine or get some like community rap or whatever else like that, assuming something like that happens, then, like I said, the same thing with Mario Williams. It'll be something where, all of a sudden the, defensive coordinator sees tape or even it's just like, yeah, look, like I can put him as a safety, I can put him as a nickelback, I can do all these different things to make him basically a better player and rejuvenate his career and make him somewhat close to what he was before, because, defensive coordinators like to, just like a head coach, oh, I can fix him, oh, I can make him better, oh, I can do this and that, because you have someone who is legitimately one of the best cornerbacks we've seen over the last 20 years, and maybe he's not at that level anymore. Fine, because he's, 30 years old or something like that? So
yeah, he's 31.
31. So, I mean, he's been doing this for a minute, but at the same time, we saw Charles Woodson late in his career. He couldn't be a cornerback really anymore, but as far as safety goes, he transitioned really well into that. We've seen what other Rod Woodson do that. We've seen, a bunch of people throughout history basically go from cornerback to safety. So I think that even Dion at the end of his career was playing like nickelback for the Ravens. So, I think if they wanted to do that, they could. But as far as the Jets go, he's probably done with that.
And I don't see any way they would come to Revis. If everything is situated here and everything sort of gets handled and he doesn't have to face any jail time, he's owed $15 million, 6 of it being guaranteed, $2 million on March 11th with the roster bonus, as I mentioned.
Right.
Do you think there's any way, obviously the Jets would want to try to maybe restructure a deal? Because at $15 million, there's no way that's happening.
No.
But do you think Revis would honestly do that? Do you think he would restructure? They would just have to.
They would just have to cut him.
He's kind of like how Dallas is almost faced with the same question with Tony Romo now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what we saw with Revis, if he wasn't going to take the pay cut with the Patriots right after a Super Bowl, he's not going to take a pay cut now with the Jets. He's going to say, okay, I signed this contract. Whatever you have to pay me, you're going to pay me. And then he'll just test it on the open market. Like I said, assuming he doesn't face any jail time. Whatever money he's owed, they'll have to pay him. He'll take that money, and then he'll go to another team, and the Cowboys or, Chargers or Broncos or Chiefs or wherever, and, maybe not be the number one quarterback or whatever, but still go to a system that he can thrive in and go from there. But as far as taking money back, no, he's never been about that. He's always been about the pay me what you owe me kind of thing.
So according to his attorney, Blaine Jones, Darrelle Revis is set to turn himself in soon to cooperate with the going on police report and incident. So for me, it seems like if he's willing to do all that, then he doesn't think he's totally in the wrong. Like, I'm sure he did some things he would have not done. Obviously, he wasn't sure if he was getting videotaped or some guy was pulling out a weapon. So he took the phone and snatched it and tried to delete it, and he threw it in the street. And then some sort of incident happened, whether it was like a fight or something happened. So, and the police took some time. This was on Sunday morning, and now it's coming out Thursday that they are charging it. So they had to do some sort of investigation in here. So I'm sure Revis is in some sort of wrong. But if he's willing to cooperate with the police and try to get to the bottom of this, and he's never had any trouble with the law, I would assume that this isn't going to be anything too serious, where he's not going to be looking at years behind bars.
No, that never really happens, though. The whole years behind bars, the only time we've ever seen athletes face years behind bars is what? Michael Vick, Aaron Hernandez, and Plaxico Burress? Like, that's the only time we've ever seen people do actual time.
Like, really serious time.
Right. Yeah, not including, like, a couple, But, with the situation, it's also really hard to figure out what actually happened because there's no probably, I shouldn't say there's no videotape. There's probably no videotape to this. So it's in the end, Revis saying, oh, well, this happened and I thought this was going on and I felt threatened or whatever. Like, it's really hard to prove these things. So jail time seems kind of unlikely at this point.
Yeah, it's the classic, like I said, he said. So in that regard, most times than not, they kind of have to just not necessarily dismiss everything, but not take anything too serious because it's really about what you can prove and what you can't prove. In this regard, there may not be a videotape depending on what the phone, how it gone about, but you can't really prove much, especially from different witnesses' accounts. The lawyer's saying one thing, the guys are saying one thing, but they were unconscious for about 10 minutes, a couple of them, so at least something did happen. So something's going to happen. I don't think it'll be really too much anything really serious, but it's still not a good look for a guy and a good look for the Jets, who have to, of course, kind of represent their player and their employee in this regard. So it's definitely not a good thing, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. We'll take our first break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about the NBA. We are on the All-Star break, but we did have 2 games last night, one of them coming down to the wire in Chicago. Was it a foul on Marcus Smart or not? We'll discuss that and more right after the break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. We're going to talk some basketball here. We are at the All-Star break, but as I mentioned, we did have 2 games last night. The last 2 games before the All-Star break. The All-Star game, of course, on Sunday in New Orleans. On the third segment, we'll discuss a little bit about the All-Star break. Steve Kerr made some interesting comments that kind of have me, I don't know what the right word to say is, hopeful.
Right.
Because I hope what he said is going to happen. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, until Sunday. We have the dunk contest on Saturday, the three-point contest, the skills contest. I'm a little disappointed that my boy Joel Embiid will not be in the skills contest, because I'm sure Philadelphia are advising him to take it easy and rest. I mean, they're not even playing him on back-to-backs and everything. So, given his injury issues. So I'm a little upset about that. I'm sure he'd have a lot of fun and he'd be really entertaining, but nevertheless, it will be okay to watch. So just the last two games last night, the Wizards went on the road to defeat the Pacers. They won 111-98. The Wizards really playing well going into the break. John Wall had 20 points and 12 assists. And then Otto Porter, he leads the NBA in three-point percentage, and he helped his case last night, shooting 6 of 10 from behind the three-point line for 25 points. Do you have a problem with Carmelo Anthony getting Kevin Love's all-star spot? Because I feel like it really should have gone to Bradley Beal.
No, I don't. I mean, I was talking about it yesterday with Pauline. Basically, I was here for the jokes because you got the Kevin Love and Carmelo Anthony trade and everything else like that.
As soon as I saw that, I thought it was really ironic. It's like, oh, Carmelo Anthony's replacing Kevin Love in the All-Star game. Like, can we see this in Cleveland? Like,
right.
I thought the same thing. I thought it was kind of funny.
But then, you look at the same thing, and Carmelo Anthony, while he may not be the dude he was back in, call it 2008 or something like that, he still has an all-star caliber year, right? He still had over 20 points, 23.4 points and 6 rebounds. So he's still, one of the top players in the league. It's just the fact that the whole New York Knicks organization is a complete mess, and he's fighting with James Dolan and fighting with, Phil Jackson, and, James Dolan's fighting with Charles Oakley, and everybody's fighting with everybody, and it just looks like it's so much more chaotic. But as far as, actual numbers go, he's still one of the best players in the league.
Exactly. He's still putting up a lot of numbers. I would have liked Beal. He's averaging 22 points, about 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He's shooting 40% from 3, about 47% from the field. And I think it's mainly because the Wizards are simply a better team. You're looking at Washington right now. They're absolutely hot. They've won 9 out of their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They're 34-21, only 5 games back from Cleveland and only 2 games behind Boston. So I would have loved to see more Wizards recognized. You saw earlier in the week you had LaMarcus Aldridge kind of, I guess you could say, complaining about how they're 43-13, but yet there's only one All-Star on the team, and that being Kawhi Leonard.
Sure.
So I guess you can give a little more recognition to guys on better teams. I would have liked to have seen that. I don't really have an issue with Carmelo getting the nod. I think it was kind of one of those loyalty ones, like, oh,
sure,
Carmelo Anthony's been here forever. Like, let's just throw him in there.
But
he's having a good season as well. So
yeah, it was probably a little bit of the thing of just like, okay, who do we vote in? Oh yeah, Melo's not in there. Yeah, throw him in there. There was probably a little bit of that. Like, I can't deny that part of it, but I mean, at the same time, like, who else were you going to pick? Like, you can do the whole thing where LaMarcus Aldridge says, like, oh, we have a great team, but we only have one All-Star. Okay, but you guys purposely play boring on purpose. Like, I was joking with Pauline, like, I have no idea what Kawhi Leonard's voice is. I have no idea what it sounds like.
It's really dark and like sad and deep.
He's just, but like, you don't, like, Tim Duncan.
You don't hear him, exactly.
Tim Duncan didn't talk, and
it reminds me a lot of Tim Duncan's actually,
right,
because he kind of talks like, yeah, well, we had a good game and we came out there and won, and I'm cutting out some coupons at the grocery store to go,
right,
because I still do that.
Like, honestly, the entire Duncan regime of the whole Spurs, right? Name me one controversy that happened the whole time.
I guess you could say Tony Parker.
That's
and
it.
Brent
Tony
Barry.
Parker and Brent Barry and Sarah
one.
and the wives thing. Yeah, but that's it. And that wasn't even covered that much. That was something that, like, you know about if you know basketball, but if you didn't know about that, I mean, that wasn't Kobe Bryant in Eagle, Colorado. That wasn't, even on the lines of something like Vince Carter hating his time in Toronto and wanting to get kicked out of there in the way possible. Like, they basically been, like, repeatedly boring on purpose. And now you have
that's just the really sort of,
and they've won 50 games the whole time. Like, the whole time Duncan was there, they won 50 games except for the one season that only had 50 games, so you can't go 50-0. Like, but you can't also say, like, oh, well, we're going to be boring, but at the same time, I want all these All-Stars and get all this publicity. Like, those two things can't correlate and be the same thing. Like, Ginobili made a couple of All-Star games, Parker made a few, you maybe have a couple other people, Duncan, David Robinson, trying to think if, like, anybody else made an all-star team, Avery Johnson or something like that. But, you basically had, like, the cornerstone of the franchise and then a handful of guys that came in every now and then that may have gotten an all-star game or two. That's just kind of how that, system worked.
Exactly. That's the system that Popovich runs. It's, in my eyes, I guess you can say them in New England, the best two organizations in all of sports, because it doesn't matter who you throw in there. I mean, Danny Green was cut by the Cavaliers, and he starts in San Antonio and is a big contributor.
Right.
That's just another example. Like, no matter who they put in there, it just works out for them. Patty Mills is one of the better backup point guards now, and he wasn't even known coming out of college at St. Mary's, really. So, no matter who they really throw in there, Popovich seems to make it work. And I guess you can say it's more of a team, and Aldridge and Leonard are obviously the stars and the leaders of the team now that Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker, well, Duncan's done, but Ginobili and Parker are basically done, even though they're still playing. It's really just like kind of evolving as to more of a whole team as opposed to those three and everyone around them.
Right.
So I guess you can say I don't have really a problem with it, but I would have loved Beal in the game. But anyways, let's get into basically the top storyline here. So last night the Bulls beat the Celtics 104-103. So you're thinking to yourself, oh, it really came down to the wire, and that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. So the Celtics are up by 1. The Bulls have the ball. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is going to be the guy to take the last shot. Dwayne Wade didn't play. Rondo didn't even score last night, although he did have 7 assists and 8 rebounds. So he made some contributions, but he didn't even have a single bucket. He was 0 for 5. So, of course, Jimmy Butler's going to take the last shot. He's being guarded by Marcus Smart, who's one of the better perimeter defenders out there, a really good defender. So Jimmy Butler basically tries like a turnaround jumper, and he misses at the buzzer. But a super, super, super late call on, I don't know how you want to explain this, like the smallest of touches on the elbow you'll probably ever see. I mean, I think it was more of a grazing. Like, he may have grazed the elbow as opposed to really, really touching it and affecting the shot.
Right.
Did he touch him? Yeah. Technically, he touched him. And do you call a foul with 1 second left to win the game or lose the game? That's obviously debatable. You saw Durant on Christmas in Cleveland got fouled probably 50 times harder than this foul was, and there was no foul called. But nevertheless, there was a foul called, so Jimmy Butler steps up to the line with 9/10 of a second left and makes both free throws. So he's got ice in his veins, clutch there for Jimmy Butler. And the Bulls win 104-103. But did you have a problem with the foul call?
Oh, yeah. I watched it live, and it was one of the things where it was just like, they called the foul way afterwards, but like the shot didn't look like it missed badly. Like, it's one thing if you get hit on the elbow.
I mean,
yeah, it's like one thing if you hit on the elbow and it kind of goes to the left a little bit, you can say like, oh, that didn't look like a foul, but the shot that's supposed to go one way totally trajected to the left or right is like, oh, okay, I can see why it would be a foul then, because that's not how people actually shoot. Like, it totally messed it up. But that was just like on the way shot, just missed the shot, did a turnaround shot, missed a shot. But he shot it, bricked off, and then all of a sudden there was a foul. And the funny part was you saw Brad Stevens, mild-mannered Brad Stevens, who doesn't get crazy up or down. He lost his mind.
Well, really the whole Celtics team, because they were celebrating like they won the game, and then it's like, wait, what? There's a foul all of a sudden? Like, where did this come from?
And they were down 1, and now you got 2 free throws. Or they're up 1, and they had 2 free throws. Now they're down 1. This thing where you had like 0.9 seconds, I think it was, to finish the game. Miss the shot. Now you go from being totally ecstatic that, hey, we finally, we beat the Bulls. Let's go into the All-Star weekend, All-Star week, basically, on a good note. We're happy.
They played last night on Thursday. The next game in the NBA is not until Thursday. So you have a whole week for the guys who aren't competing in the festivities.
Yeah, and even for people like LeBron and Melo and everybody else, you have a handful of days off after Sunday. You get like 4 days off just basically to like recover and rest and do whatever you want to do. But yeah, like after the fact, Isaiah Thomas went to Instagram, went to Twitter, and just basically was pissed off, yelling at the refs, saying, they cost us the game, stuff like that, which I'm never usually one to say, like, oh, they cost us the game, because don't, make a game close or whatever for them to do that. But like, that's one of those fouls. It's just like, that wasn't a foul. Like, sure, maybe if you want to call that a foul in like the third quarter, fine. But like in the last second, like when it barely, you had to show like 3 different angles, and even then you were like,
you had to super zoom in to even see that. You can see he convincingly touched his elbow.
Yeah.
Here's my thought on the call. I had an issue with the call for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think you don't make that call with 1 second left. If you're going to call a foul with 1 second left, I need to be convinced that it was a foul. So there's number one. Number two, I'm not sure the official's name. I think it was Zach Zarbith. He's the one who called the foul, but he called it super, super late. If you look at what he was doing, he watches the shot go towards the basket. So he's looking at the ball.
Right.
Once he sees it miss, then that's when he blows the whistle and calls the foul. So it's like, if the shot would have went in, would you have not even called the foul?
Right.
If you think something's a foul, then you need to call it right away. That's the other issue I have. And then number three, it's almost like the Bulls didn't even think it was a foul.
Right.
Butler was the one who got fouled. But even he wasn't complaining about a foul call.
Right.
He kind of stood there and looked at it and missed, and then all of a sudden he hears a whistle, and then he's like pointing at his elbow like, "Oh yeah, I got fouled. It's almost like he thought he didn't even get fouled. I kind of compared it to soccer, which I do a lot because I watch that all day. Mm-hmm. But and I'll put it in terms where you can kind of understand. So when you have a guy go into the penalty box looking for a penalty, a lot of times people will flop, or they might go down a little easier than they would if they were at like midfield to try and get a foul call. And then you have the players around them. If they think it's clearly a penalty, they'll be looking at the ref and screaming at them. But if they think it's not a penalty, they kind of just play on, and they can see what's going on. They know what is or what is not a foul in soccer. It was almost like Butler went into the box and fell down,
right?
And the players kept playing because they didn't think anything was going to happen. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I compare it to, because that's what happened. Butler took the shot. He looked at it. He didn't scream right away for getting fouled. It didn't look like his arm or his shot, his form got sort of impaired or moved in any sort of way. So that's my issue with it. It's like they didn't even think it was a foul, and then all of a sudden it is. And I guess you can say, yeah, it's only one game. But this could honestly be a big game for Boston. They're 3 games back of Cleveland at the break. The Cavaliers don't have Kevin Love for the next 5.5 weeks. The Celtics could easily pass up the Cavs for the number 1 seed. I don't think Cleveland really cares too much about that. We saw what they did 2 years ago against Atlanta in the Eastern Conference Finals when the Hawks were the number 1 seed. They swept them. So I don't think Cleveland cares too much about the number 1 seed. But Boston might. I mean, that's a place that's given LeBron James fits in the past, whether it be with Cleveland or with Miami. Mm-hmm. And they have a great home court and really, really rowdy fans. So that could be a big game.
Yeah, it's something that, this team has been kind of clawing the whole way, trying to get to the Cleveland's level. And Cleveland, like you said, they're injured right now. J.R. Smith, Kevin Love, all these people are kind of injured right now and won't be back for a little bit. So it gives the Celtics at least a little bit of, hope or whatever you want to call it. Something that like allows them to say like, hey, we may be able to get the 1 seed because, whether or not you think they can win the championship, if they get the number 1 seed, they have a legitimate shot. And, with Love out and Kyrie Irving, trying to do as much as he can with LeBron, like, there's no guarantee that the Celtics or the Cavaliers make it back to the finals for the, 3rd straight time and the 7th straight time for LeBron. So if they can get the number 1 seed and then home court throughout the whole thing, that matters a lot. And they're only back 3. And if they'd have, had this game, that would have helped a little bit more. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, they're still close enough to where it's nice. But, if they lose by a game, they are going to yell a lot and very loudly about this one game that you could clearly see was basically, decided by the refs in the last second of the game.
Exactly. That's my problem with it, is that I'll kind of compare it to the NFL, and it's a lot different in the NFL. You have a 16-game season as opposed to 82. But I look back at the Fail Mary year,
right,
at the replacement refs. And obviously, I'm a Packer fan, so I know a lot more about it than maybe the general fan would.
Sure.
But that year, we were in a tie with the 49ers with the same record. If we would have beat Seattle like, honestly, they did, then we would have jumped ahead of them and not had to play a certain team in the playoffs. So it makes a difference. I realize 1 out of 16 is a lot more closer of a fraction than opposed to 1 out of 82, but still, every game does count. Every game does matter. And I think it's going to be something we may potentially look back at, saying, well, what could have happened if? You know what I mean? So, nevertheless, at the All-Star break, the Celtics are 37-20. The Bulls are 7th in the East. I guess you could say they're still alive, but at 28-29, that's not the season they would have hoped for after bringing in Dwayne Wade from Miami.
Right.
So we'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk a little bit about the All-Star Game, some of the festivities going on this weekend. Steve Kerr made some comments within the past couple of days that, honestly, I hope, and I'm hopeful that this will be the case because I'd love to see it happen. And then Vince Young is attempting a comeback in the NFL, but EA Sports, I think they think otherwise about Vince Young's chances of returning to the NFL. We'll talk about that right after the break here at the Golden State Media Concept Sports Podcast, guys. Almost done. Don't you guys go anywhere.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So the All-Star Game in the NBA is on Sunday in New Orleans. Of course, tonight we have the celebrity and former players game. I know Jason Williams is going to be in there.
Yep.
So interested to see if he'll throw out any elbow passes. I'm sure he'll at least try it, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he has to try something. Yeah, he hasn't been in an actual game situation, that's been NBA sanctioned, I guess you could say, for quite a bit. And now he gets to play with a bunch of other people. Oh, he's going to try all the stuff.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of, I guess you could say, as his nickname goes, White Chocolate.
Yep.
So I'll be interested to see what he does tonight. And then, of course, tomorrow we have the three-point contest, the dunk contest, the skills contest. Looking forward to that. I'm sure I'll talk about it on Monday with Pauline. And then on Sunday we have the All-Star Game, of course, the East versus the West. Steve Kerr is coaching the West, representing the Golden State Warriors because they were in the finals last year. So he was asked this week if he would play Kevin Durant with Russell Westbrook.
Right.
And he said, well, I'm definitely considering it. I've thought about it. And I'm not going to share with you today what my decision is, but it is something that may happen. I would love to see this happen because I think it'd be hilarious to see if they would even pass the ball to each other, because I really don't think they would.
No.
But I don't think Kerr's going to do it because I don't think he wants to create any possible controversies. He already said he's going to play all four Warriors together with one person. If he wanted to throw ultimate shade at Russ, he would play Westbrook with the four Warriors. But I don't think he'll put him and Durant on the floor together at all, period. I really just don't think he will, because I don't think he wants to create any more controversies and really just stir the pot more. I think he wants to keep it easy, have it be a game for the fans and have some fun and just sort of get his team some rest before they really grind out the second half of the season and push towards the finals again.
Okay, two things. One, you might be right about Steve Kerr not wanting any controversy. Also, this is the same guy that, got punched in the face by Michael Jordan and kept going about it like nothing actually happened. And also, he's been one of the few head coaches that have been super outspoken in politics for this last season. So leaning into those controversies isn't exactly something he's not used to / doesn't, mind doing. Also, I want this to happen. I don't ask for much.
Yeah, I want it to happen too.
Because we were talking about it yesterday. So if that happens, right, if all of a sudden they decide to basically make it Russ, KD, Clay, Durant, and Draymond, you know how sometimes they roll the ball, and there's 15 seconds left in the half or whatever. They roll it a bit to half court and they pick the ball up. If they were to do that, for Steph Curry or whatever, and, Draymond passes it in and it's rolling, Russ just, takes it. He's just this is mine. And then, it just basically becomes 1-on-5. Russ is well, they ain't going to pass me the ball, so I'm just going to shoot all the time. It is something that I want to see so badly. Not even because everyone's going to talk about, Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook playing together. Okay, fine. I get that. And that's going to be interesting and fun and everything else. Also, that's not the two on the floor that I want to see the most. It's Russ and Draymond.
Okay.
Because those two, Durant's a little bit passive-aggressive, not super, super passive-aggressive, but still not very confrontational, right? Draymond is, and Russ is. And you put those two on the floor, they're going to fight. They're on the same team, and they're going to fight.
Not in the All-Star game.
Are you sure? Are you positive?
I'm not positive of anything
there
with
you
Draymond
go.
Green.
There
because,
you go.
we saw him get ejected from the game on Wednesday against Sacramento. And, a game they were blowing out the Kings by the end, but it was tied at halftime.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain of anything. It's the All-Star game. But I really don't think that they're going to cause any controversy in the All-Star game.
I don't think Durant and Westbrook will, because I think they'll both be subtle enough and stuff like that. I think they'll both, do whatever, and they'll kind of look at each other and walk off the court, but there's not going to be any kind of fireworks, as you want to call it, right?
Yes.
Draymond will give you those fireworks. Draymond will make it 4th of July out there. He will have all types of anger looks on his face, and he'll probably try and nut kick his own teammate. It's going to be one of those things that's just going to be entertaining to watch. And that's what I want to see. Like I said, I'm just here for the jokes. I'm just here to laugh at this whole thing because it's an all-star game. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they score 30 points or 5 points. It has no real ramifications for anything going forward. But at the same time, I want to see this. I want to see them on the court and see what happens. See if Steph Curry gets the ball and you obviously on the left side, Draymond, hand up in the air. And then on the right side, you get Russ just like looking at him like, you better pass me the ball. I swear to God, you better pass me that ball right now. Like, I want to see these things.
I want to see what happens as well. I really do hope that Kerr puts them on the floor together.
You don't even have to do it for a long time. Do it for like 5 minutes.
I don't see it happening.
Just like 5 minutes.
I mean, there's 12 guys. He can rotate a lot of them in. I wouldn't expect people like Curry and the rest of the Warriors to play that much anyways. He already said that Curry's not going to really play that much.
Sure.
So I would imagine that he's not going to put them on the floor together, but I would love to see it. And at least that he's entertaining the option.
Sure.
I'm sure he understands that this is what the fans want. He spent some time in broadcasting.
Yeah.
He knows what the fans want to see.
But yeah, he understands that, like, this is the thing that they want to see, so he's kind of, like, giving, like, dangling a carrot kind of thing. It's like, oh, you want to see this?
He's throwing us a bone a little bit.
Right, but he also says, like, I'm not saying yes or no, you're going to have to figure that out. Also doing kind of one of those, like, after the break, we're going to tell, kind of thing like that. He's trying to basically build some intrigue for the game, which I can respect, but also, like, please, Mr. Kerr, 5 minutes. That's all I ask. I don't even ask for the whole team. I don't ask for like the 4 Warriors and Westbrook. I just want Durant, Westbrook, and Draymond Green. Just those 3. I'll deal with that because Klay's not going to do anything. Klay's just going to sit in the corner waiting for a 3. He's not going to be confrontational at all. He looks like he's stoned half the time. Like, it's not going to matter for him at all. All I want to do is see those 3 on the court. Just those 3. That's all I want.
I'd love to see it too. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Sunday. Of course, is the All-Star Game on TNT, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific in New Orleans. And before we take our leave for the weekend, we got one more story to talk about here. Of course, as you probably know by now, it was reported on Wednesday, a little bit yesterday, that former Tennessee Titans quarterback Vince Young is attempting a comeback within the NFL. And when I read this, I was like, come on, you got to be kidding me. This happens literally every year. We see someone try to make some sort of comeback. You have Brian Wilson in MLB trying to make a comeback by throwing the knuckleball now.
Right.
You have Vince Young trying to make a comeback as an NFL quarterback now. He has not thrown a pass in the NFL since 2011, so 6 years ago, 6 seasons ago. And you look at the NFL as it is now, and you have a handful of teams that really need a quarterback. Do you think they're going to go after Vince Young? The answer is no. So I would say Johnny Manziel has a better chance of getting back in the NFL than does Vince Young. But nevertheless, he is attempting a comeback. He's trying to maybe right the ship. I don't know if he's broke or he's just really, really passionate about being an NFL player again. But nevertheless, he's trying to make a comeback. So that's good for him. Hopefully he is successful, although I don't see it happening.
No, he's been out for too long. Even if you want to say the time that he was on a practice squad, which goes to like 2013, 2014, that's still 3 years out. And you can be out for a couple of years. Michael Vick was out for a couple of years, and he came back and was pretty good. But also, that was when Michael Vick was like 31. This Vince Young at 33, been out for a long period of time. Even when he was playing, he wasn't like that good. He was kind of the like lighter, Tim Tebow, where it would just be something where he won games, but you didn't know how because he wasn't even completing 60% of his passes. He was just kind of scrambling around.
He was the quarterback when Chris Johnson ran for 2,000 yards and was just literally the most exciting player in the NFL.
Right.
And they just got wins. But so basically EA Sports kind of mocked Vince Young for doing this. And when I read this, I was really surprised because if you remember, Vince Young was on the cover of Madden in 2008 for Madden 08. So he's been, I guess you can say, a client, a rep of EA Sports and Madden already. But they basically mocked him. So when they read this, they basically replied to like a column on ESPN, basically saying what I just said, that Vince Young's trying to come back. And they said, well, I guess we'll send him a copy of Madden NFL 17. Basically saying that he has a better chance of coming back and playing in the game than he does in the real world. So I guess you can say it's like, haha, yeah, like clever. But it's like, you literally had him represent your company 10 years ago, and now you're making fun of the guy? Like, that is like the ultimate shade right there.
It is kind of mean, but at the same time, if Brett Favre wanted to come back, they'd say the same thing, and he was one of the best quarterbacks. It's just at a certain point, you're not the same guy, and if you've been out of the game for a long time, it's really, really, really hard to come back. Like, if you wait out a year in the NFL, it's hard to basically come back. You wait 6 years and have fun, good luck, and I wish him the best. Honestly, I really do.
Yeah, me too.
Because I loved watching him in Texas and even the beginning in Tennessee. I thought he was really fun to watch and everything else like that. I wanted him to do well, but name me an athlete that's been out for multiple years that's come back and been really good. I can say Michael Vick.
I can say Serena Williams, but in tennis it's a little different.
Also, she's
opposed to the NFL at being a quarterback.
She's also an anomaly. She's maybe the greatest athlete in the history of sports, male, female, whatever. She might be the greatest athlete, period, and she's been able to do this for way longer than you're supposed to do it.
Exactly, and Michael Jordan came back after a couple of years from playing baseball, and he did really well. But
he at least played baseball professionally.
Team around him,
yeah.
Right? He wasn't just sitting on the couch like Young is doing,
right?
And to come back playing the NFL position, which is, I guess you would say, the most demanding position in all of sports.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way this is going to happen. I hope, like I said, I hope for the best. If I were Vince Young, maybe you can do the Trent Richardson route. Maybe you can go to Tom Herman and be on the staff at Texas and just kind of play scout quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then just maybe have a shot at the Canadian Football League or something. But I don't see any way he comes back in the NFL. But I thought it was kind of, I guess you can say, disrespectful that EA Sports Madden is throwing shade at Vince Young. It's you had him represent your game 10 years ago, and now you're just oh, well, here, you have a better chance of playing on the game than you do in real life. I was okay, that's a little harsh there, but
not wrong, just kind of mean.
This is what everyone does now on social media.
I mean,
everyone in the NBA, they literally came out with a new rule that teams' Twitter accounts need to stop taking shots at other teams' Twitter accounts.
That's so dumb.
It's banter, it's fun, it's clever. I mean, I was watching a soccer game on Wednesday where a team won 5-1, and they beat them at the exact same place with the exact same score last year. And they literally replied to them hey, we'll see you again next year. And it was it showed the score from both games.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's clever, it's fun, and it's good, fun, fair criticism and banter. And that's what social media is now with sports. But I thought it was kind of a little mean. But nevertheless, that's going to end the show for today. We are going to be taking a 48-hour break. We're going to take a weekend break. We'll be back in the studio on Monday. I'm sure Pauline and I will recap the All-Star festivities from the weekend, and then everything else that comes off in the world of sports. So for Pauline, who's not here, my name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good day, have a good weekend, and enjoy your President's Day weekend. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.